Welcome to Better Sex, where you get the information and inspiration to create and enjoy your best possible sex life. Join your host, sex therapist Jessa Zimmerman, as she brings you expert guests, helpful tips, knowledge, and strategies to improve your intimate relationships. And now, your host, Jessa Zimmerman.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jessa, and I'm so happy you're here for this episode of Better Sex. I've dedicated my professional life to helping couples enjoy a fulfilling, intimate life. I believe that sex is important. Our connections to other people matter, and we're not living our life to the fullest if we aren't connecting emotionally and sexually with our partner. That's why I'm here, bringing ideas and information to help you live and love better. I've been considering the kinds of things I hear from clients in sessions about how much they struggle when they're different from each other. Different things come to mind. I want to be spontaneous and my partner always needs everything planned and scheduled. I want to have sex to feel connected. That's how I feel connected to my partner versus the other person is saying, I need to feel connected first before I'm going to want to have sex with you. There are people that when something's wrong, they want to dig in and solve it right away and make sure they're coming to resolution with their partner and feeling good. And then their partner is of the type that needs to go away and process internally and doesn't want to come back and address the issue or the conflict until they sort of have it worked out in their mind. These are just some examples of how different people can be from their partner. And I tend to believe that we often are attracted to our opposite in a lot of ways, not our complete opposite maybe, but in enough areas where these things cause bumps in the road. In the beginning, we're attracted to it. We're interested because this person is so different. But that tends to be the kinds of things that cause conflict or problems later in the relationship. So while I loved it about you in the beginning because you're so adventurous and I'm not, eventually it'll drive me crazy that you're adventurous. And why can't you just do things the normal way? These kinds of issues come up in therapy with people. So I thought it might be fascinating to have a guest on who specializes in Myers-Briggs personality type assessment to come in and talk about the Myers-Briggs test, what are the different ways people show up on that, how that might show up in a relationship and specifically with sex, and just give you another way to think about the differences with you and your partner, how neither person is wrong or broken, but how we have to work together with a different person to make a sex life and a relationship that's going to work for both of us. So my guest today is Jessica Butts, and she is the CEO and founder of frontseatlife.org, where she inspires, motivates, and educates people to live their life from what she calls their front seat, using their innate personality type as measured by the Myers-Briggs. She calls herself a retired psychotherapist since she's not in practice anymore, and she's now a life and business coach and a Myers-Briggs expert who is on a mission really to inspire other people to what she says is accomplish magnificent things by embracing their innate type. And one thing you're going to hear her say, she's always preaching this, is be unapologetically who you are. She's passionate about personal development, traveling, deep connections with people in her life, and helping create ahas for her clients. And I'm so delighted that she's agreed to come on the show and talk to us about Myers-Briggs type and sex. So, Jessica, thank you so much for being with me today.
You're so welcome, Jess. I'm thrilled. What a fun topic we get to talk about today, personality and sex.
I know, it is fun. So I thought maybe you could start by just go over what is the Myers-Briggs in case people have not heard of it.
Yeah, it's really the most widely used personality assessment tool in the world. It was built by a mother and daughter team back in the 40s. It was picked up from the work of Carl Jung, a very famous Swiss psychologist, and lots of the numbers, quadrants, colors, lots of those personality assessment tools that are out there are really from the derivative of Myers-Briggs. Again, it's the most widely used assessment tool in the world, and it's there to help you figure out four basic areas. They call them dichotomies of energy, energy in your life. So one is introversion, extroversion. The next is sensing, intuition. The third is thinking, feeling. And the last is judging and perceiving. And they all really tell you different things about yourself, which those four quadrants, which we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about today, are fascinating in and of themselves. But then when you start building on top of them and you start playing with them and putting them together, you can come up with all kinds of archetypes and just really, really amazing things to help people figure out who they are innately in this world. And that's kind of my passion, is helping people do that.
Yeah. And could you tell me a little bit about how you got into it? I mean, how long have you been working with Myers-Briggs?
Gosh, Jess, that's so funny. I haven't been asked that question for years. I actually started in it my very, very first job out of college. So I was 21, 22 years old. I got a human resources job straight out of undergrad. And the company that I worked for actually did a Myers-Briggs training. And it was like a light bulb went off. I've never seen myself more clearly, seen those that I worked with more clearly. I mean, it was literally like this roadmap to figure out myself and to figure out other people. So from that day on, I've been obsessed with it. I got certified in it soon after that. When I went back to graduate school, I was still obsessed with it. And it's been a huge, huge part of my psychotherapy practice. And now that I'm a coach, it defines everything that I do, because it helps us more than anything else in this world, helps us figure out how to be unapologetically who we are in this world. And so I talk about being unapologetically who you are in your life, your love, and your business.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, how about let's dive into the four dichotomies?
Fantastic. Okay. So this is very, very basic information, knowing that, we don't have a super long time to talk about this. I mean, I have 3-day retreats and we talk about these for 3 entire days. So the four dichotomies again are introversion, extroversion, sensing, intuition, thinking, feeling, judging, and perceiving. So the first dichotomy is about our energy. Introversion and extroversion is about our source of energy, where we give our best energy and where we get our best energy. To make it very simple, extroverts give their best self and their best energy to other people, and introverts save their best energy and get their best energy from being by themselves.
I just wonder, I think that introvert and extrovert are words that people use a lot without necessarily grounding in Myers-Briggs.
100%.
Are there misconceptions about that or anything you'd want to correct from the Myers-Briggs standpoint about that?
Yeah, I try to be as clear as possible that it's about your energy. It's not about being shy. It doesn't mean that you're one or the other. It's not an either or. If you take the actual Myers-Briggs assessment, there's a scale of preference of 1 to 30, and we all fall somewhere on that scale. So it doesn't mean that we're all extroverted or that we're all introverted. And it doesn't mean that you're necessarily shy. It doesn't mean that you're super loud all the time. It really just is about our source of energy. And so that's, I think, the biggest mistake is, introverts just think that extroverts are loud and obnoxious. And while some of us are, I don't think that's necessarily what that means. And all introverts aren't, shy and reserved. It's just, again, our preferred sense of energy. And then if you and I, get an opportunity to do another call together, we could talk about the front seat and the back seat, because each of us has a front seat, meaning the two things in our life that we're really, really innately excellent at. And, in my teachings and in my books, I talk about one of those people in the car is extroverted and one is introverted. And those two together make up your best energy. So, introverts need to be extroverted and extroverts need to be introverted. It really is a balance of our energy that makes up our best self and our entire front seat. So thank you for that clarifier, because I do think there's a lot of confusion about that.
Right.
Yeah. So the next one is very interesting and defines my life, and it defines most of my clients' life, and I think has a big, big thing to do with how we are with our sex life, to be honest, is sensing and intuition. And this is all about how we take in information. So sensors, denoted by an S, S's take in information via their 5 senses in a very concrete, literal, factual way. If they can touch it, taste it, hear it, smell it, see it, it is a fact. They also live in the here and the now. They are very kind of practical, logical, now kinds of people. I will also note 75% of the population are sensing people.
Oh, wow.
Therefore, the majority of our world is built by sensors for sensors, meaning here's a book, read this book, and let me give you a multiple choice test. There's no experiential learning in that. That is a very sensing way of learning. And again, they're very routinized kinds of people. Intuitives, denoted by an N, because I is already used for introversion. Intuitives are completely the opposite. While they're only 25% of the population, they get a fairly bad rap, and they're very misunderstood in this world because they are what I call the woo-woo people. While sensors take in information in a concrete, logical, factual way, intuitives take in information via their sixth sense, meaning they have a gut feeling about something. They have a hunch or a speculation. They're very in tune with how they feel about things or think about things. But again, it's this gut feeling, a hunch, speculation. They listen to energy. And they are, again, very big picture thinkers, where sensors are concrete, factual people that live in the here and the now. Intuitives are very big picture, big concepts, pattern kinds of people that do not live in the here and the now. They're always thinking about the future.
Okay.
They must have variety in their lives, or they get incredibly bored. Hence where we're going with this interview, to talk about sex. So I think that will be a very interesting topic when we kind of circle back.
Okay.
Very quickly, the last two, thinking and feeling, is now that we have this information that we've taken in via sensing and intuition, we then have to make decisions. So thinkers make decisions with their head, and feelers make decisions with their hearts, to oversimplify it. This is the only gender biased as well as very societally biased dichotomy. So men are supposed to be thinkers, and women are supposed to be feelers. And of course, what if you're not? What if you're not in a heterosexual relationship? And how does all of society and all of that factor into this, into masculine, feminine energy, how we are in the bedrooms, who leads, those kinds of things. So this is a very, very interesting one with homosexuals and heterosexual relationships.
Okay.
And last but not least is a judging and perceiving dichotomy, which is absolutely one of my favorites because it's one of the funniest ones. And this is how we like ourselves organized in the world, Jessa. So this is how you like to be organized. This is how your listeners like to be organized, and how we like the world organized around us. So Jays, this is you and I, we are organized, decisive decision makers. We are on time. We are early. We know what we want. We are planners. We are scheduled. And oftentimes we're rather controlling, because if other people aren't doing what we want them to do, then it's messing with our schedule.
I do not resemble that remark at all.
Oh gosh, you're not like that at all. And I realize when I see the J that I possess in other people, how unattractive it is as well, because we are very controlling people. We like things our own way. And it's just kind of embarrassing to admit sometimes, but we are very much that way.
Right.
P's, on the other hand, P's just really prefer their life to be undaunted by surprise. They are very unscheduled. They are very go with the flow. They are very just fly by the seat of their pants. Don't worry about it. We'll figure it out kinds of people. And they also like a lot of spontaneity. So J's, people like you and I, we kind of like to know when we're going to be having sex so we can plan a little bit, or what's the schedule going to be like. And P's are much, much more spontaneous kinds of people, just in general, in life, in business. They're ones that wake up on Saturdays and they don't need to know what the plan is. While J's, people like you and I, it almost makes us uncomfortable to not know what the plan is, or we may actually need to schedule downtime. So I'm sure your listeners can imagine, like, knowing these four things, just each one individually is incredibly helpful. But then when you start building them together, that's where the real fun can really happen too. And so I've built some archetypes that I've written in both of my books. Live Your Life from the Front Seat, which is much more just individual focused, and then Don't Do Stuff You Suck At, which is more business focused. I talk about the archetypes, and I take the second and the last letter and I put them together in some funny archetypes that I think pertain to every part of life, sex included. So we can maybe talk about that.
Right. That could be interesting for people.
Yes.
And again, all four of these dichotomies are on a scale, right? Or on a
absolutely.
They're not
Absolutely.
binary, right?
Yes, correct. So one J can look very, very different from another J. So a 1J looks very different from a 30J. And it makes a huge, huge difference.
Okay. All right. So, I mean, you've alluded to some ideas already about how this might apply to sex, but let's take each of them and sort of talk about how this might show up in the bedroom for people.
This is the fun part about personality types. So for anybody who doesn't know theirs, you can go online. There's a million different tests. I have one on my website, jessicabutts.com. It's totally free. I make mine a little fun and quirky, and I tell you what your front seat and your back seat is. So that's the first place to start. Is you can certainly do a self-assessment as we're talking through this to kind of figure out which one you think you are. But it would help you to kind of, to pause this potentially and jump over there to jessicabutts.com and take that. But the first dichotomy, well, I think they all make a big difference. So let's just talk about introversion and extroversion. I think this plays a big factor in how you like to talk about sex. And I believe how verbal, and I'm actually very curious your opinion on this, how verbal you are in the bedroom. In my experience, extroverts are external processors, meaning if something feels good, they're typically going to say it.
Okay.
Where introverts are more internal processors in every part of their life. And so I imagine in the bedroom that they are also more internally processing versus, oh, that feels good, baby, or, oh my God, do more of that, or, oh, this is fantastic, or do it this way. However, and there is just an external processing part of communication that just happens in every part of our lives. So I'm curious if you've experienced this with any of your sex therapy clients, if you've noticed maybe your introverted clients are more closed in that way, or the extroverted clients are more open.
I don't know. I'd be really interested if any listeners want to comment on this episode that way. I'd be curious about that, because what comes to my mind is just how many different things get in the way of people being verbal during sex or not. So much about the way we're brought up.
Yeah.
Any level of shame and self-consciousness.
Yep.
I mean, there's so many things.
Yeah.
So
And I think this is a factor too.
Yeah. I bet it is, but I'm not seeing a straight line correlation necessarily, but it's an interesting thought.
Yep. Just about how we communicate and how we are external processors versus internal processors.
Yeah, I certainly hear that from people.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
People that need a sounding board and an internal versus external processing.
Yes. Yep. So the next factor, which is a huge one, is the sensing and intuition. So intuitives in general, I'm not a sex therapist. I'm an expert in this field, but not in terms of sex. Intuitives in general are variety kinds of people. Literally, they have to have variety or they just get stagnant and they kind of want to just be done. It is routine to any intuitive is like death. It is incredibly boring to them to have structure of any kind. So in terms of your business, in terms of running your family, in terms of raising children, and again, I'm sharing my expertise, and I think that's why this is such an interesting conversation, is I have talked to some of my clients about this, and they have talked about their sexual lives with their partners, and they can see this, that as most of my clients are intuitives, and they say they need the variety. They need it to be different, potentially in different places, different days of the week, different positions, where sensors are just more, I would say, to use a general term, they're more traditional kinds of people. They are totally fine with routine. They're way more structured and way more scheduled. So they're kinds of people that can say like Wednesday nights at 7:00 or, Saturdays at 3. that's something that's much more comfortable to them.
Well, and maybe having a way to have sex. I mean, a lot of couples over
Yes.
time sort of develop their way of
Yep.
having sex.
Yep.
But I'm sure, some people are more comfortable with that than others.
Yeah. And this is a big part of type. And that this is just something that is innate. So this is going to be something as couples that they have to learn to discuss.
Yeah.
Because what we like to do is we like to put labels on people of, why do you need this variety? What's wrong with you? Why can't we just have missionary? Why can't we just have these, 3 positions? Why do you need toys? Why do you need this? Instead of pathologizing each other and saying, oh, you're so boring. Why do we do it the same way? It's really just understanding each other and knowing that sensors are really just more fine with routine, and intuitives need. I can't express that enough. As a strong intuitive type myself, there is such a need in me to have variety in all areas of my life, that whoever I am with, it's just something that they have to understand, whether it be travel or food or conversation or sex, whatever it is, there just has to be a sense of variety.
Okay, just taking a quick break. Be back to the show in just a minute. I want to invite you to be part of the conversation. I've started a private Facebook group where I share resources, where I go live online to answer questions in office hours twice a month, and where we are going to have a conversation and a discussion and support among people who are committed to their relationship and to their intimate life. I would love to have you join me. You can find the link at bettersexpodcast.com/community. It also makes me wonder, I don't know if this is going to correlate or not, but I'm wondering if intuitive types who sort of go from their gut, if they're the ones that, need to feel connected before they want to have sex. And then often they're partnered with somebody who has sex to feel connected, right? Like, I wonder if that's sensing it.
Yeah, that's the next one. So great. I guess that's a great segue into the next one. So thinking and feeling. So thinkers are much more logical people, meaning they don't necessarily have to feel connected. Sex to them is somewhat of it's just something you do. It's just part of life. It's something that you do. I don't think I said this before, but John Gray wrote that great book, of course, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus.
Right.
That there really is a different biological makeup for men and women. The stats are about 66 to 75% of men are thinkers and 66 to 75% of women are feelers.
Okay.
So this is where the connected piece comes in that you often hear, that women say more often than men, but men say it too, is that I need to feel connected. I need to have had a conversation. I need to feel like we're a team or whatever, to feel like I want to share my body with you or to be with you in that way, where most thinkers are just much more logical. It's like, obviously we're going to have sex because we're married and this is what we do. Like, lay down, let's do this. It's just a logical process to them, where feelers, they don't logic anything. Everything is based on how they feel about it.
Yeah.
So even though it might be about, yes, we're married who cares? You don't have to be married, whatever. We're in a relationship and we're supposed to be having sex. To them, that doesn't matter. That's the logical answer. So you can imagine any couple really having this argument that, of course, we're supposed to, be having sex or intercourse or being intimate with each other. But the feelers oftentimes have to feel it. They have to be connected. They have to feel like they're, on the same page with their partner. So that is a huge, huge difference about making decisions. Again, feelers make decisions with their hearts and thinkers make decisions with their heads. Well,
right.
A thinker would say, it's been 2 weeks. We haven't had sex. It's time to have sex. And a feeler's like, we haven't had sex for 2 weeks because you haven't been nice to me for 2 weeks
right.
or has said anything nice to me. So just a logical answer versus a feeling answer. And again, neither person is right. This is something that is innate, and we have to learn this about each other in order for us to understand and have good kind of compromise about that.
So to go back to the sensors, I still have this question because you said those are people that take in the world through their physical senses, through their body.
Yes.
And so when I hear clients talk about through having sex is how they feel that connection, do you think there's a correlation with sensors with that?
I absolutely do. I absolutely do. They are much more, hence the name, sensory kinds of people. They take in things via how it sounds, how it feels, how it looks, how it tastes, all of those kinds of sensory experiences, where intuitives are much more creative. They're oftentimes not in the present moment. They're thinking about other things. They might want to be more creative in their lovemaking. And sensors are incredibly tactile kinds of people. And so, yes, absolutely. That leads to typically a deeper sensory experience for sensors.
Great. All right. And then the last, judging and perceiving, right, is the last dichotomy to think about sex.
I know. Yeah, this is a pretty funny one. So this is a lot about spontaneity versus planning. So judgers, again, being controlling people that they are, typically their schedules are pretty full. So whether it's full of kids activities or work activities or after work activities, weekend activities, whatever it is, they're fairly scheduled. And they often have a hard time, what I call being. So J's are doers.
Yeah.
Let's get this done. They might even be that way about sex. Like, okay, let's do this. It's time to have sex. Like, let's get down to business here. And P's are much more spontaneous, much more go with the flow. And I call them the beers. They're better at being in the moment, which is one of the, great tips of having great sex, is not trying to overthink it, not trying to overcomplicate it, to really be in your senses.
Yeah.
So, I've never taken it this far, but SPs in particular might be very, very sensual kinds of people because they like to touch and they like to be spontaneous. So They could be probably very curious, interesting, exciting lovers just because of their personality type. But I have talked to many of my clients, Ps in particular, that not only do they like the variety as an N, but they're also very interested in being spontaneous.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're ones that they may just grab you in the kitchen and have one of those moments. And for a J, that might actually be irritating. Like, wow, I'm trying to cook dinner, or there's people coming over, or the kids are in the other room. That is a logical, planned response. Like, can't we do this later?
I hear that from clients all the time. Can't you see I'm trying to unload the dishwasher?
Yeah. And a P's like, are you kidding me right now? Like, they are so much more spontaneous, and they're thinking like, what would you rather do than be having sex right now? Would you rather be unloading the dishwasher? Like, that's just absurd, but it's so much of our type. So I work a lot with entrepreneurs. And one of the things I like to talk about is that J's, judgers, they are work, then play kinds of people. Meaning when you're at the office or you're getting stuff done, like you don't mix the two. You work and then you play. You unload the dishwasher and then you have sex.
Yeah.
And P's are people who like to intermingle it. They are workers and players. They like to do things at the same time. I mean, all of these dichotomies, all of this stuff is really just about understanding yourself first, understanding your partner, talking to somebody but like you, understanding how they are in the bedroom, how they are in life, and navigating this in a way that they can start having conversations, I think, in a very helpful way.
What do people do when they're different in these aspects? Which I have to imagine, like so many things in relationship, we tend to be attracted to our opposite. So I would imagine that most couples are going to have differences in a lot of these.
Yep.
And you've already said, number one rule, of course, is we don't pathologize each other. But what do people do when they're different? And are there specific suggestions you have for when they're different in specific dichotomies?
Yeah, this is a huge, huge, huge topic. In fact, my next book is going to be called Love Me for Who I Am. And it's going to be about taking personality types and putting them in terms of loving relationship, intimate relationships. And the main thing is first figuring out who you are. Just not who your spouse thinks you should be, not who your family of origin thought you should be, but who you really are, so that you can start communicating that with your partner. Like, wow, I heard this podcast, this Jessa and Jessica chick were talking about this, and I realized I need variety in my life, or this is why I'm so introverted and you want me to be so extroverted. So the very first step is just acknowledging who you are, being unapologetically who you are, and embracing that. The next step is then communicating these things with your partner. And so I talk about this all the time. And Jessa, you and I both learned this in graduate school, that there's an infinity symbol of one side is differentiation and on the other side is attunement. And the differentiation piece is understanding your family of origin, understanding your background, understanding your personality type, and just saying, like, this is what I'm coming to the table with. This is my attachment. These are my flaws. This is my messed upness. These are my goods, my bads, all of the stuff, and really just owning that. And then the other side of that, and why it's not a direct line and an infinity symbol, is the other side is then attunement. And so when we choose to be in relationship, and for me, that's with anybody, whether it's your sister, your mother, your business partner, or your lover, is being able to attune to them and understanding what their needs are. Because it's obviously not all about us, especially with sex.
Right.
And being able to communicate our needs, our desires, one, without pathologizing each other. And number two, being able to state our needs and having that not be something that you're broken, that it's embarrassing, that it's whatever. Then lastly is always kind of like navigating that together, compromising, communicating, sharing, like, this is what's up with me. How do you feel about this? How do we talk about that? And some couples are in a place where I think they can read books like mine or yours and navigate this on their own. And then there's others who want podcasts like this. And then there's others that need help.
Right.
And none of those are wrong. I think it's just whatever level that you're at. But I know your greatest hope, and one of my greatest hopes too, is to help people be able to communicate in a way that's effective for them and for their relationship.
Yeah. And I guess, fundamentally, they have to get to a place where each of their needs are sort of honored, not pathologized,
Yes.
but like, really, if you need some structure, if you need some scheduling, that has to matter as much as my need for spontaneity.
Yeah. Absolutely. And again, this is why people have to communicate this. I think instead they the image, just laying in bed, just frustrated, not knowing how to communicate it. What's wrong with you? What's wrong with me? Did I do something wrong? Are my boobs weird? Like, that didn't feel good. And just being able to say, there's nothing wrong with you, that you don't love spontaneity, but gosh, I really would love some more spontaneity. Or, God, there's nothing wrong with you that you don't like to use toys, but I'd really like some variety. Or again, just being able to kind of open these things up, because nobody's the same. It's just not possible.
Right,
Nobody's the same. No one comes with the same background. Nobody comes with the same understanding of sex, and nobody is the same personality type in terms of like your strength or preference. One ENFJ can look very different from another ENFJ. And so really learning how to navigate this stuff together, kind of in the bedroom and outside of the bedroom, in every single aspect of our lives. I think that's why you wanted to have me on the show is, again, I'm no sex expert, but I'm a type expert, and this stuff affects every single part of our lives.
Well, yeah, and it's just such another amazing framework for thinking about how we're two different people coming together to share, a sexual encounter or a relationship or life. And there has to be room for both people, and you have to collaborate.
Yep. And it's one of the biggest acceptances, I think, of our lives is choosing to accept our partners for who they are, for loving them truly for who they are. And it's I think probably one of the hardest things that we have to do in our lives, because it's a whole lot easier just to kind of hang out on that differentiation side and be like, this is who I am. I don't care what you think. That's not going to work. That's just a spoiled little teenager. Like, it just doesn't work that way. We've got to learn how to be in relationship with other people. And a big part of that is hearing them out, hearing out who they are, what their needs are, what's their background, what's your fears, what's your shame, all of those kinds of things that come with every part of our lives.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
What a great conversation.
Yeah, this is wonderful.
What a great conversation.
Seems like tip of the iceberg, but yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and I would love to do some more stuff with you. I mean, this is such a great topic, and this is my thing, and that's the sex is your thing. So I can see us collaborating again.
I can too. And I know you already mentioned your, the books and the site. We'll have all those links on the show notes. Do you want to say anything else about, how people could work with you or learn more about what you're doing?
Yeah, really just go check out my website. I'm not a big salesperson. I'm just an invitation kinds of person. Like if something's resonating with you, there's tons of information on my website, which is jessicabutts.com, which is BUTTS. Lots of info there on personality type. All of the profiles are on there. There's a free assessment on there. And if you're interested in learning more, there's lots of info on that too. So easy. Yeah. Thank you so much, Jessa.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Better Sex. Please visit our website, bettersexpodcast.com, for show notes and additional episodes.
Thanks so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed the episode. I also want to thank my Patreon supporters. If you are interested in becoming a patron of the Better Sex Podcast, consider making a monthly pledge through patreon.com/bettersexpodcast. You can find the link in the show notes as well. For as little as $2 a month, you'll get advance access to every episode, and there are more rewards for greater donations. Thanks. I'd also ask you, if you have time, to visit iTunes and subscribe to the podcast. You can rate and review the show, which helps other people find us. And if you found this episode resonated with you, I would love to hear from you. You can leave a comment on the episode page, which you'll find with the show notes. Let me know what you think. And if you've got questions you want me to answer on a future episode, you can also record a question for me right there, and I might play it on a future episode. Thanks for listening, and tune in again soon.
Our theme music has been composed, recorded, and provided by Rick Ruskin, courtesy of Lion Dog Music.